Hello, everybody. It's really nice to see you. Good morning for everybody joining us. This is the Astro-Babble with Sam, continuing on from about a month hiatus. Very glad to be back. I've missed our mornings together. So this is a live stream where I take charts that have been donated by you, lovely followers on the internet abroad, and we will be analyzing them and talking about what I see, talking about how I read charts. It's not necessarily the right way to read charts, it's just my way to read charts, how I've been trained. Been studying astrology for over 14 years, so I think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And yeah, we're just here to have a great time, kind of sip on some tea, share a beverage, and just enjoy the morning. Had a little bit of tech issues and definitely been weird trying to balance opening up my massage practice with the Astro-Babble live stream. So thank you for sticking around, and I look forward to sharing more astrology stuff with you, as well as if you would like to schedule a consultation, if you would like to take online classes, or if you would like to sign up for the medical astrology intensive series that I have going on tonight, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Just go ahead and go to ScorpioRisingAstrology.com, check that out, and yeah, let's get to it, shall we? Okay, so first things first, we've got Lindsay. Lindsay, my darling, how are you? Okay, let's take a peek at Lindsay's chart. So just a reminder, I haven't looked at these charts beforehand. We're going kind of off the cuff with this, which is kind of how I like to do it. I will prepare for a chart when I read somebody one-on-one professionally, but for these kind of things, it's nice for me to echo my thought process. It's really nice for me to kind of talk about what I see and when I see it and what that means to me kind of on the fly, right? So here, oh, glorious, Lindsay, absolutely glorious. So why is this chart glorious? Let me tell you. So we have the ascendant in Gemini, yeah, which gives her that Gemini flavor to her core personality. A lot of people think that it's the sun sign or the moon sign that makes up the core personality, but in my personal experience, it's the ascendant and the ruler of the ascendant. Speaking of the ruler of the ascendant, Lindsay's got Mercury in Gemini, very close to the ascendant applying to Mercury in Gemini, which is just such a powerful aspect, Lindsay. Cannot even begin to tell you how, like, I know your entire life you've thought that you were a Taurus, but not only do you have an air sign on the ascendant, but you also have the ruler of that air sign in its proper sign very close to the ascendant applying, which basically means that you are a very strong Gemini personality. You also have a lovely moon in Aquarius, which kind of echoes that airy energy. So although you might identify with this idea of being a Taurus, your sun is actually in a very difficult position in the chart. It's lacking a lot of power. It's lacking a lot of substance. And so we need to kind of rely on your strengths in a chart and learn to remediate the weaknesses. So first things first about your chart is understanding how much of a communicator you are, how good you are at listening and dissecting words, how much you embody that sign of Gemini, Gemini being that sign of extremes, you know, flitting from one end of the spectrum to the other, mentally, emotionally, sometimes physically being very, very active or restless. A lot of those kind of Vata, air characteristics when we look at more kind of holistic energetics. Also, the idea of the ruler of your chart being so close to the ascendant from a medical astrology standpoint gives us an idea that the Gemini body systems in your particular frame are very, very sensitive. So we're looking at the lungs, we're looking at the arms and hands, and we're looking at the nerves specifically, the three body systems that Gemini rules as being areas that will break down first when your body is under stress or not being taken care of. So that could manifest as things like carpal tunnel, lung specific issues like childhood asthma when you were younger. A lot of things that we talk about in these chart dynamics grow out of us over time as we learn to kind of adapt and counterbalance. But when we're younger, we'll often see these patterns kind of playing out in multiple ways in a more aggressive format. So because you have air on the ascendant and then your moon is airy in the ninth, a moon in Aquarius in the ninth house of higher learning, travel, foreigners, spirituality is a very detached and wise moon. It's a very Buddhist moon, would be a good way to say it. Because that moon in Aquarius is distant, yeah? Air signs don't like to be in their feelings. They have feelings, they acknowledge those feelings, but they're a little bit too heavy for those air signs, those air energies to deal with. And to put the moon in Aquarius in the ninth house of spirituality, it's very much a kind of, I'm going to leave y'all humans to roll around in your own shit while I go up to the mountain and meditate on the situation so that I can become enlightened and rise above it all. You know, that's very much your style of emotional satisfaction. When your feelings become compromised, you retreat into this sense of spirituality. But putting this moon in the ninth also makes you very attracted to foreign culture, very emotionally tied to ideas of growth, ideas of higher learning, and constantly kind of becoming a better version of yourself. Yeah. And I think one of the beautiful things about that particular formation is because it counters where your sun is located, Lindsay. So your sun is in Taurus in the 12th house of hidden enemies, karmic healing, kind of, lost the camera, kind of deeper, denser, recovering themes. Also a very important house for medical astrology. It is the house of hospitalizations. So when we look at the sun being in this kind of dark, transformative soup of a place, which is not easy for the sun to be in, because the sun prefers to be light and radiant and to be seen and to be enjoyed and to enjoy, right? The sun is that radiant side of our self, our personality, but you've tucked that sun away into a very dark corner of the chart. And often when we see the sun in the 12th, this is a marker for like really severe self-esteem issues growing up. This is the idea that your light has been diminished or put into a place of enemies or teasing that really kind of brought forward some of the darker sides of that radiant sun. So we have this natural airy tendency for you to flight and to reach for the stars and to kind of pivot and weave your way, shifting weight and momentum in that kind of airy circulatory fashion to escape the darker, deeper, denser themes of that sun, which I think is a valid strategy, by the way. Not knocking that. However, that sun in Taurus will need to be remediated. So we might need to do some deeper kind of self-confidence work, some solar work, and really understand that paired with this Venus in Aries in the 11th, like a sun in Taurus in the 12th and Venus in Aries in the 11th is a perfect storm for you developing unhealthy proving grounds in your relationships. So the idea of you specifically with friendships and with your own identification with that ego self, saying, I'm not good enough, therefore I must be better. And if other people aren't growing with me, then they are not worthy of my love and attention. And likewise, if I am not growing, I am not worthy of my own self-love and attention, which is a flawed premise, darling. It is a flawed premise. Yeah. So we need to understand that like growth is good, yeah, but you can't punish yourself for staying still, especially at a time like this when we need to be a little bit more strategic and everything is moving through your 8th house of business, taxes, estates, other people's money, and death right now with all of your Capricorn transits. Like there's a lot of heavy hitters happening in everybody's chart, but your chart specifically in some very out of control topics. So we need to respect the idea that staying still and recovering and nourishing and kind of withdrawing to grow, but staying still in general is okay, but also very much okay right now. Just because people aren't growing does not mean that they don't deserve to be in your life. Yeah. But there are nuances to that. You know, the ruler of your chart is also ruling your 4th house of family. There's a really interesting dynamic where you're very, very attached to your family dynamic. They tattooed on your soul some very, very important lessons this go around, which I think are important, which is important for you to understand. So there is that fine line between like holding people that you love and you trust close, but then also understanding that, you know, there is that fine line between, okay, if somebody is stuck or stagnant or being too nitpicky, growing too much, trying to kind of hack the system in a way that is overproductive, that's also going to be a red flag for you. You're here to learn about the spirituality of money. I really enjoy that. Earning money from travel, from spiritual endeavors, from working with foreign cultures or working overseas, because the moon in Aquarius in the ninth is ruling the second house of finance where the North Node is located. I really like that. Interesting. Your feminine masculine principles are very out of balance, Lindsay, because we have Venus in Aries, the sign of her fall, and then we have Mars in Libra, the sign of Venus, the sign of his fall. They've traded signs. They're in mutual reception, only just, but the idea of your yin principle of Venus and your yang principle of Mars being in each other's signs, being cross-pollinated. You know, there's this idea of understanding what it is you bring to the table from a rest perspective and from an activation perspective, but also from a masculine, feminine perspective, and understanding that, you know, yes, Mercury is very androgynous, and a moon in Aquarius prefers to kind of bust through gender norms, but there is this respecting the idea of a time for complete darkness and a time for complete light and activity. The idea of 100% rest, 100% action. You don't need to be on all the time, and you don't need to be stagnant all the time. There is going to be this kind of constant seeking of those kind of yin yang balance principles in your chart that I think will do very well with your Gemini rising and your Mercury close to the ascendant. So you have all the skills that you need to tackle these things. It's just being aware of all of these processes, especially when it comes to having children of your own. These themes are not going to be going away. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate you donating your chart to science. Hello, Sandy. Hello, Anita. Hello, Maria. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're enjoying them. I miss them too. Yeah. So if you missed the chart readings like I did, welcome back. I'll be doing these as often as I can. Like I said, it's been an absolute shit show, you guys, trying to open up post-COVID. You know, Florida's been opening up quicker than other places, but the massage industry as a whole, like, support your local massage therapist, because our industry has just been legally misrepresented during this time with being in the health industry, not being in the health industry, do we count, do not count. Like, there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening from that perspective. Thanks, Lindsay. I'm so glad that you enjoyed the chart interpretation. I do find these very, very fun. I used to read friends and family's charts, you know, forever, and then I became a professional astrologer, and I do this for a living, and it's just really nice to vocalize and share with you guys in this format. Whoop, I'm losing my charts. Okay, let's talk about Maria. Okie dokie, darling. Cheers. All the way from Sydney. I love Australia. I can't wait to go back. Girl, Maria, child, have mercy on you. You are activated right now. And when I say you are activated, like, you are experiencing all of this fire that's happening right now. Happy birthday, by the way. Happy late birthday. But because you have this Leo ascendant, the sun is moving through your first house of self right now. So there's a lot of personal activation, but also the idea that your natal sun in Aries is making a very close trine to the ascendant. And there's Mars in Aries happening right now. There's the Mercury Cazimi happening in Leo right now in the first house of self. Your personal awareness of your spiritual path, where you're going, travel endeavors, teaching, like, there is so much that's opening up for you right now. The doors, they're fabulous. I'm so excited to see what's happening. Now, all of this is coming at a very interesting time for you, Maria, because all of this Capricorn nonsense with Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter all being retrograde in Capricorn right now is happening through your sixth house of health and work and pets. So in the idea of that sixth house representing those themes of personal health, specifically illness, and work, the job that you do, day-to-day tasks, and pets, those furry creatures that we keep around as four-legged family, or maybe you have a bird, I don't know, no judgment. but the idea that there's so much ignition, so much fire energy that's playing in your chart right now that's activating a lot of your synergy, activating a lot of your first house of self and body, activating a lot of your ninth house of travel, foreigners, higher education, and spirituality. But then we have all of this denseness, all of this heaviness happening in the workspace. And in the health space. So it's really a very important time for you to start looking at your body, to start looking at your physical tissues, especially the bones, the teeth, the joints of Capricorn, especially the spine, the heart, the eyes of Leo. Yeah. And if you'd like more information on the medical astrology side, I have my medical astrology series that I'm teaching tonight, tomorrow, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those will be recorded, so look for those to drop soon as well online. But yeah, so you've got lots of stuff happening from that perspective right now in your chart. So I just got very distracted with current transits. But yeah, having a Leo ascendant and having your sun in Aries where it is exalted, that's a very strong sun. That's a very strong ego. That's a very powerful rulership. Like when you walk into a room, people don't just know, they cower in fear. Like the amount of fire that you have in your chart is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm completely here for it. I absolutely love it because you also have really interesting strength points that you've put in your chart, but also very, very particular detrimented planets as well. You have a lovely Venus in Taurus in the 10th house of fame. So the idea of you specifically being very well known for your beauty, for your aesthetic, for your kind of earth goddessness with that Venus in Taurus. I think that that's a beautiful placement to have. It is also making a trine to your Pluto in Virgo in the second house of finance. So I think as you age, that Venus will become more and more forward, and you'll actually be recognized for a more sustainable beauty long term, which I always enjoy seeing. Also being very well known for teaching is something that comes through in the chart because that Venus in Taurus, that very well placed Venus, is ruling the third house of writing, teaching, communication. Now, caveat to that, you do have Mars in Libra retrograde here. That's a pretty detrimented Mars. So like you have really great stuff and then really bad stuff in the chart. And there's this kind of counterbalance of immense strength with terrible weakness. And so one of the major lessons that you're going to be overcoming this time around, Maria, is the idea of your self-confidence to teach. Like you're a great learner. You're a great learner with the sun in Aries in the 9th house of higher learning. But when it comes to the 3rd house of writing, teaching, communication, you've put this Mars in Libra retrograde here, Mars in the sign of his fall, going backwards. There's a lot to chew on here, Maria. So we need to understand that writing, teaching, communication is a destiny for you. Like it's non-negotiable. It is something that will need to happen as you exercise the potential of your chart. However, it will come at great personal cost or difficulty in regards to that masculine Mars principle of doing, of initiating, of becoming focused, of choosing a path and going for it instead of being distracted by the retrograde backwardsness of it all and the Libra indecision of it all. But then as we unpack detrimented planets like this Mars, then we have this absolutely adorable Jupiter in Cancer, which is another exalted placement. So you have the sun in Aries, his favorite sign to be in. Then you have Jupiter in Cancer, his favorite sign to be in. The luckiest planet of the chart is in the sign of his exaltation, and that is present in the 12th house of karmic healing, of hospitalization, of karmic healing, hospitalization, hidden enemies. When I see an exalted planet in the 12th house, it naturally kind of makes this therapist. Yeah, it's somebody who navigates the dark very, very well, which is another kind of feather in your cap when it comes to you being a teacher, because again, you sharing the lessons, you being able to fight the monsters, but also teach other people how to fight the monsters, right? Or in some cases, kind of partner with the monsters, because that Jupiter is very lucky. and very exalted in Cancer in the 12th. So it's kind of like you're not a demon slayer, like you're a demon tamer. Like you teach people how to use their darkness to their advantage and to kind of use life skills in a way that really boosts them up in fabulous, fabulous fashions. Oh, nope, chart went cold. Nope, that was it. No, that's it. The chart died. Okay. When I do these readings, it's always really interesting to me what information chooses to come through. But then there are some times when I'm doing these chart readings, and it's just like, no, the chart is done. It said what it had to say, and we can always follow up with things a little bit more one-on-one, kind of talk about the chart during a private consult. But there are these moments when I'm doing these kind of mini readings where it's like, no, that was it. That was the lesson. Cool. Let's see who else is who's on. Good morning, Renee. Good morning, Maria. Oh, you stayed up. Lovely. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad it was spot on. Good morning, Susan. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. We are on chart number 3. Chart number 3 is going to be Heather. Good morning, Heather. How are you? My chai tea. Okay, let's take a peek. Okay. Oh, this is a fun one. This is ooh, Heather, honey, we got some stuff to talk about, darling. Okay. All right. So let's talk about Heather's chart. So we have Capricorn on the ascendant. Again, all the bullshit that's happening through Capricorn right now with the current transits that won't be over until December 19th. These are affecting you very, very greatly, Heather, in the first house of self, the first house of the body. It is our first medical house that we look at from a medical astrology standpoint. So again, the idea of health issues coming forward over the past year and a half due to all of these really intense Capricorn transits. We just need to be aware of that. We do have some interesting pileups in the 12th house and the 11th house. The 12th house has been a theme this morning already with karmic healing, hospitalizations, kind of very deep therapy happening in the 12th house. We have the Sun in Sagittarius here, Neptune in Sagittarius here, and Venus in Sagittarius here, as well as the North Node in Sagittarius, all in the 12th house. And then in the 11th house of friendships, we have Uranus in Scorpio, MC in Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio, as well as Mercury in Scorpio. The ruler of the chart is Saturn in Cancer retrograde, and that's a tough break. Okay, so Heather, when we look at your chart, the strength in your chart is here. Yeah, in the 3rd house of writing, teaching, communication, you have Jupiter in Pisces. Mwah. Absolutely adorable. Jupiter, luckiest planet of the chart, in his home sign of Pisces, flawless. You're a natural-born teacher, natural-born sharer, writer, communicator. Having the most prosperous planet in the chart in that house, in that sign, glorious. Absolutely glorious. However, we also have the exalted moon to talk about. We have the moon in Taurus in the 5th house, which makes you very, very parental, which makes your body very childbearing, is a good way to say it, because the 5th house is the 5th house of fertility. And to have the moon here, because the moon rules things like fertility and the body, but also to have the moon in Taurus, her exalted sign, is lovely. It is beautiful. There is detriment here. Because the moon is being opposed by Mars in Scorpio at full strength and Mercury in Scorpio, as well as the MC. So we do have this idea of children bringing conflict into the life, even though they come easy, because the moon in Taurus does bring a lot of that kind of glorious Hathor, kind of cow goddess type energy into the 5th house of fertility. Like it's like your fertility goddess. Like it's beautiful, Heather. But to have such strong planets in opposition from the 11th house of friendships, tribes, social groups, The idea of all of this really nice energy in your fifth house of children is being opposed by this need to be social, this need to be in groups, this need to develop friendships, this need to have and exercise your darker side. So there is this balance between the Scorpio Taurus axis of your chart that's a little bit tricky. And I think it's made trickier by this next aspect, which is the ruler of your chart, Saturn in Cancer retrograde. So to have a Saturn-ruled chart is to sign yourself up for the hard race. Yeah. Saturn is not a nice planet for the first 30 years of life. In fact, some would argue that he's not a nice planet. She's not a nice planet in general. Saturn is the lord of restriction. Saturn is the queen of vice. She is the one who bears all of her weight unforgivingly in order to purify, refine, and squash out all extraneous bits of self. That fierceness, is also in severe detriment in your chart. Saturn, already being a stern planet, is in the sign of Cancer, the sign of its fall, a sign that it doesn't like to be in. It's staying at an Airbnb that is in a foreign land to it, where it doesn't speak the language. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Saturn in Cancer is also retrograde, going backwards. Yeah, so it adds to the detriment of that planet. And where is all of this detriment piling up? And it will come as no surprise to you, Heather, that this is all happening in the 7th house of relationships. Specifically spousal relationships and intimate relationships. So to have the ruler of the chart in the 7th house in general means that you very, very much identify with this idea of being in love, of being in a strong, supportive relationship that's very nurturing and very much being taken care of by that person who you choose to dedicate your life to. What I'm going to say next is very important. Because this planet has a lot of potential to go very wrong, I would like you to understand that you giving up all of your power and surrendering all of yourself into one relationship that is your end-all be-all world end is setting yourself up for a little bit of disaster. You have a lot of very strong, fierce placements. You have a lot of skills. You have a lot of very powerful dynamics in your chart that can be taken advantage of or suppressed in the worst cases by this Saturn if it runs out of control. Yeah. We have to understand the idea of, although you are very familiar with the idea of unconditional love, and you have the ability to give that unconditional love to others, just because you give it does not mean that you are receiving it in kind. Yeah. And you should not settle for less. That Saturn in Cancer retrograde in the 7th is all about conditional love, and I will do this for you if you do this for me. It is a business arrangement that starts to become the relationship. And although the relationship itself might give you the children that you desire, there is a trap. Yeah. And that trap happens because all of this really intense Scorpio energy in the 11th house, like the social groups that you keep, the company, the tribe that you identify with, which is kind of on the edge and very mystical and deep and somewhat seedy and dark, but delicious and sensual. All of that beautiful Scorpio energy, that kind of, that jet black shimmer of Scorpio coming through in the 11th house, like all of that really intense Saturn-Moon combination is taking away a lot of that. So we just need to be careful that you don't box yourself into your own problems when it comes to other people, my darling. Yeah. And although you may feel confident that you can heal them, although you may feel confident that you are stronger than that, and I'm saying that you do have the potential to be, but if you do not have a very, very sharp eye on your situation, you will be taken advantage of more times than you personally feel that you would be. So, question first, act second, measure twice, cut once in the relationship department. And that's all I have to say about your chart, because it is a rather complicated chart. So if you'd like to be one-on-one, we can do that. But I hope that that message serves you, because you do have a lot of very beautiful lessons to teach others. And I would hate for somebody to waltz into your life and think that they can tell you how to live yours. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for donating your chart. Okie dokie. So that's that. Just kind of checking into the comments. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on. I appreciate you. We are now on to chart number 4, which is Renee. Renee, my love, my darling, my queen bee. Cheers. Good morning. Oh, I wondered why we got along so well. So Renee has ascendant in Virgo. Love me a good Virgo ascendant, which is that very detail-oriented aspect of Virgo. At its worst, Virgo, especially with Pluto being very present in the first house, and the ascendant applying to it, that Virgo ascendant with Pluto does have the tendency to be a little bit hyper-focused to the point of destruction. Kind of that very... everything must be in its right place, but everything must be in its right place, but I'm going to move the couch back and forth so many times that it breaks off the legs from the couch. Like, it's that kind of energy where we can be too focused on the small details, and that can be destructive. But after 50, when that Pluto starts to mature and that power starts to come through in the first house of self, the physical body, the small intestine, like all of that beautiful, enriched Virgo energy starts to become fertilized, and the soil of the chart really starts to be primed and pumped to do some amazing things. There's a beautiful nutrient richness to that Virgo, which is able to understand that, like, no, I can leave that for tomorrow. Everything will be fine. I don't need to control that. It can grow on its own. You know, that level of the work starts to become very present. But having the ruler of the chart in the 12th house of hidden enemies does pose a little bit of an issue. When we see the ruler of the chart in the 12th, and the ruler of the chart is the planet who rules the ascendant, but who also then is embodying the native, the person that we're reading the chart for. So in this case, Renee is Mercury. So when we look at Mercury's placement, we know about Renee, right? And that's with any chart. We can do that, which is why the ruler of the chart is often more important than the sun sign and moon sign, in my opinion, as well as the ascendant. So the ruler of the chart is in Leo in the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of hospitalization. The 12th house is the house of hidden enemies. It's a very deep karmic healing house. And to place the Lord of the chart here, we have a very strong emphasis of the 12th house in this chart, which seems to be the theme of the morning. I always enjoy reading charts, and it's like, yeah, of all these charts that I've picked, they all have this in common. Seems to be a 12th house. Seems to be a 12th house theme this go around. So yeah, there's a very heavy 12th house emphasis of not only being that Mercury, that guide, that winged messenger for other people, but also to understand that healing is a personal journey as well as a journey for other people. Mars and Leo, that's a really beautiful fire placement to put in the 12th. And the way that I like to think about that is, you know, you're not just Mercury in this situation. You don't just have your winged sandals and you're flitting like a psychopomp in between, you know, the deepest depths of the 12th house underworld and the brightest depths of, you know, the chart in the 10th. It's this idea that you also have this Mars and Leo. You have this beautiful torch. You have this really strong, aggressive, martial, militant, flamboyant, dramatic side to the process, which is very much shining a light in those catacombs, in that labyrinth that tends to be a little bit dark by nature. So I appreciate that fire in a very kind of swampy, darky house of the chart. Swampy, darky are technical terms, by the way. They're written in ancient texts. Swampy, darky. Go look it up. I'm pretty sure Ptolemy talked about swampy darkiness in the 12th house. That was a joke. When we look at the chart as well, Actually, Renee, you and I share this in common. You have a new moon in Cancer in your chart. I have a new moon in Cancer in my chart as well. Yours is in the 11th house of friendships. So when we look at the sun and the moon as two very core indicators of personality, the sun is our ego. The sun represents our sense of self. The sun represents our ability to radiate our essence into the world like the sun. The moon is that deeper, hidden side of the self. It's that subconscious drive. It's that need. It's that requirement for emotional fulfillment. It's the yin aspect of that personality versus the sun is that yang aspect. And to have both in Cancer gives you a really interesting dynamic here. Because anybody who has a new moon in the chart tends to hide their emotions because the moon is literally dark, and the moon representing our emotions in a chart. To have a moon that is hiding behind the sun means that you're naturally prone to hide your feelings from others. And when I say hide your feelings from others, I'm not saying, well, oh, I'm just going to keep this little pocket here over to myself. I'm talking about, again, speaking from personal experience, so I'm kind of reading myself as I'm reading you, the idea of having both the moon and the sun in Cancer, having a double dose of that watery, mothery, potentially smothery energy, because we all know that Cancer puts the mother in smother, potentially, when expressed poorly. That moon behind the sun in Cancer hides all of those feelings. That double dose of emotional, watery, caretaking Cancer, it does give you that servant experience where it's like, yes, I will do for you. I will go to the ends of the earth for you. I will give you everything you need. But in order to get into my space, you're going to need to go to Mordor and back. Like, you're going to need to prove it to me. Like, there are walls behind walls within boxes under lock and key, under invisibility cloaks. Like, it's very much the idea that servitude of Cancer coming forward in the 11th house of tribes and groups and friendships, and that mother hen archetype that we see in the 11th house of tribes with that double Cancer placement, it really does start to work against you because that moon who rules the sun as the ruler of Cancer is unseen. She's hidden. There's so much of yourself, so much of your personal needs, but also this yin, this undercurrent, this deeper river, this underground river side of you that nobody really gets to see because it's literally being eclipsed by the sun. If you were to go out on the night of your birth, you would not be able to see the moon because she's hidden. Her light cannot reflect the sun's rays, and that metaphor can be just a really delicious unpacking of what it means to be both a caregiver but not a care receiver. And again, speaking from personal experience, because my moon and my sun are 1 degree apart in the 9th house, like it's very much a thing for that planetary placement, and we know that all too well. Okay, what else do we see right now in the chart? Money is tied to social status, which I really enjoy about this chart, but I think it's an interesting twist. Also, the idea of being famous, being in the spotlight, constantly being surrounded by people. We have this Venus in Gemini here, which is ruling your 2nd house of finance. Money will always be slightly unpredictable because of this Uranus placement in the 2nd house, but having it being ruled by Venus in the 10th is just this idea of the more you're in the spotlight, the more you're out in the community, the more you're being seen, because that 10th house is the highest point of the chart. It's where we beg to be witnessed. Yeah. The more you're going to gain financial resource by that presentness. So if you ever find that money is low, like, just jump on social media and start talking, which from our communications, like, you do gloriously. But what you'll notice is that there's a direct correlation throughout your life, not just recently, but throughout your life, to the more you are seen, the more money you make, which is always interesting. But also the idea of your 6th house of work, being ruled by Saturn and Gemini in the 10th as well. So that makes you a very strong public figure when it comes to your work, like always being out in the spotlight, always being wrangled for positions that put you as the spokesperson. You're always kind of front and center visually when it comes to your work dynamic. And a lot of that is because, one of the things I enjoy about having this Cancer Sun combination, this Cancer Moon Sun combination, is that people trust us implicitly because they know we're not a threat and they know that we have their best interest at heart. Yeah. And some people fake that. But with this position, like, they don't understand how fearful we are that we will let them down. Yeah. But they intuitively know, and they're like, oh, yeah, there's no way that putting this person in the spotlight would come back to bite me in the ass in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to put them on a pedestal. Yeah, it's safe. It's a safe placement. So I enjoy that about the dynamic of your chart as well. There's also, one of the things that's a long-term, and this will be the last point because we're wrapping up on an hour. It's already been an hour. The Saturn and Gemini in your chart in the 10th house of success and career is ruling your North Node in the 5th house of children. And I think one of the things that really needs to be honored about your chart is that the success of your children is the goal of your life. The next generation must be more successful than you. And part of that is really difficult because you're like, oh, well, I need to stop being in the spotlight because I need to give my kids a chance to shine. I need to give my babies a chance to shine. But also, the more you step out of the spotlight, the more finances start to dwindle. So it is kind of like a catch-22. But because the North Node of purpose, of striving, of that kind of north of your compass is in the 5th house of children, being ruled by Saturn in the 10th house of success, there's this idea of if you're feeling like you're lacking emotional fulfillment, if you feel like you're lacking in life direction, go take one of your people, one of your babies, and throw them in the spotlight. Have them co-teach a class. Like, have them do their thing. Exalt them, lift them up, use your fame to give them the platform. Because that's really what your chart is kind of wanting to do, is to say, look, I know that I'm supposed to be here and I'm doing my thing and I'm doing it very well and I'm good with me, but I want you to be better than me. Like, I want to leave the legacy that gets you higher up on the ladder than I am right now. And that's kind of what will scratch the itch of your soul's purpose if you feel like you're kind of dwindling or veering away from that at any point in time. Excellent. Thank you, Renee. Love you, darling. I appreciate you very much and all that you do. Not that anybody with a Cancer Sun combination like that is going to learn how to take a compliment anytime soon. We just don't. But anyway, love you. All the kisses. And then, yes, thank you so much. And so we have one more chart to work with, and that is going to be Erin. Erin. Okay, Erin. Talk to me, Erin. Let's kiki about it. Y'all are ridiculous. Some of these charts and the way that these, like, I cannot begin to tell you how random this stuff is, right? Because I put an all call out for these charts and you send them in, right? You are the ones who send them in. Yeah. I just ask for them, but sometimes it's delayed. I've gone through, I think I had like over 165 charts that were sent to me the last time I did an all call, which was ridiculous. And to have you in the order that you send them in, right? And I'm sitting here like, oh, this will just be random. There will be no synchronicity here. Everything will be fine. These will be completely different charts. There's no overlap whatsoever. Another 12th house, really, really important thing that we need to talk about. Yeah, in Erin's chart. So before we get into other aspects that I normally like to focus on in a chart first, we have to unpack this Scorpio Sun conjunct Pluto in the 12th, Erin. Having the sun in Scorpio in the 12th is a very interesting decision, because putting the sun in the 12th naturally lowers the sun's ability to shine, which we've talked about in previous charts during this live stream as well. However, you've put the sun in the perfect sign to navigate the 12th house. Scorpio is a beast, and a lot of people sleep on Scorpio, or they're fearful of Scorpio, as they should be. But when we look at Scorpio's ability to traverse the darkness of the 12th, yeah, how do you catch an assassin with another assassin? Yeah, how do you figure out who the spy is with another spy? It's that kind of thing. So putting your sun in Scorpio in the 12th is an absolutely delicious strategic placement, but you didn't just put your sun in Scorpio in the 12th, did you, Aaron? Yeah. You also put it applying within 1 degree to Pluto in Scorpio in the 12th, the generational planet that everybody within your generation has. Yeah. Everybody within your generation and my generation, because I have Pluto in Scorpio. All the millennials have Pluto in Scorpio. And that Pluto in Scorpio conjunct the sun is what we call a cazimi, yeah, which is happening right now. Right now we have Mercury in the heart of the sun having a cazimi. And basically, when a planet goes into the heart of the sun within 1 degree of the sun, there is a backlighting of that planet, and it stamps the self. It stamps the ego, in this case, with particular powers and qualities, which I think for you need to be understood. Because you're not just a Scorpio sun. You're a Scorpio sun conjunct Pluto and Scorpio in the 12th. Yeah? The 12th is a house of karmic healing. It's a very, very intense house. It's kind of like the catacombs of self-development. Yeah? You're basically walking through an underground crypt. But in the crypt, there are diamonds, there are rubies, there are jewels, there are lessons, there are riches to be discovered. Yeah? But you just need to get over the smell of rotting corpses and the idea that you might go crazy if you stay there too long, and that it's not a place for humans to dwell. Yeah. But you enjoy that. And you've really kind of come into the world, this go around at least, with the mission and the resources and the tools to navigate that space. And because of that, let me just say that it may have been very, very tough growing up. Harder than most, because that hypersensitivity of Scorpio really is, it is a curse until you learn how to control it. Yeah, until you learn how to wield that Scorpio energy properly, that hypersensitivity does get the best of you in the worst way. Speaking from personal experience, as somebody who has ascendant in Scorpio conjunct Pluto in Scorpio. Like, I get it. I really do. So there's that. We need to understand. Then we have this other side of you that is just rearing and ready to go and like super, super fiery and dynamic, which I enjoy. But it's polar opposite to what we just talked about. Yeah, so there is some balance that needs to be had here. The darkness needs to be acknowledged in your chart. It needs to be worked with. You need to put your hands in it. You need to work with that clay. It's very easy to suppress that in your chart, but it's such a big part of you that it needs to be honored and made space for. Now, an ascendant in Sagittarius is the exact opposite of Scorpio. It's fiery, it's spunky, it's bright, it's dynamic. It's the firework that Katy Perry talks about in her song. Yeah? And so we have this like deep, dark, watery energy of Scorpio, and then this really bright, fantastic, mobile, dynamic energy of Sagittarius. You also have a Jupiter-ruled chart, which is fabulous. You've put the ruler of your chart in Gemini retrograde in the 7th house. So one of the things that, again, you identify very, very heavily with, just like another chart that we've read during the live stream, is the idea of relationships, and relationships being almost too important to you. Especially because as somebody who has very strong Scorpio placements, you're not just looking for a relationship, you're looking for a soul bond. Yeah. You're looking for somebody that you can dissolve into and mesh with completely. Yeah. And innervate their world to such a degree that you lose your sense of self in them. Yeah. Um, However, that is not necessarily the wisest choice. It is easy, yeah, but although melding is an important part of humanity, like connect with people, bond with people, you also need to be able to forge a separate identity outside of that. So there are catch-22s and nuances that you need to navigate in your chart as well. Part of your mission this time around is to start a family, is to bring stability through partnership, because that Jupiter in the 7th house of intimate relationships, where's my mouse? That Jupiter in the 7th house of intimate relationships is ruling your North Node in Pisces in the 4th house of family and home. So there is this idea of you wanting that white picket fence very, very badly as part of the promise that you've made to yourself that you would work on this time around. And I think that one of the ways that you can really get that is by working hard from a community standpoint. You have really great work placements in your chart, excellent work placements, like career has never really been an issue. You have Venus and Libra in the 11th house of tribes, communities, friendships, ruling your 6th house of work. Mercury in Libra in the 11th house, ruling your moon in Virgo in the 10th of success. Like, you've got really great work placements. Work is not an issue. Yeah, it's just not an issue. But the balancing the dynamics of that Scorpio side is going to be probably the most difficult part of your chart, in my opinion. So we really just need to make space for your creativity, for your children, for your sexuality, for a lot of your 12th and 5th house topics, because Mars in Aries is ruling your 5th house, which is also ruling your Scorpio 12th. Yeah, there are other themes that we could talk about, but I think I'm running out of time. I only got 3 minutes left in the hour. So what I would just suggest to you is understand how to make space for that Scorpio side that's doing a lot of healing, but also is doing a lot of healing for others, especially in the child department. And then also, as you switch from Scorpio mode to Sagittarius mode, and you really start to bring in some of that bubble, bring in some of that lightheartedness, bring in some of that, those easier to move themes, understand that just because it's easy doesn't mean that it's right. Yeah? And then the moon in Virgo in the 10th, like, if you want to just like sit back and coast, if you want to just like chill and let the universe take you away, throw yourself into your work. Yeah, because that's the easiest place in your chart. That's where the smoothest sailing is going to be in your chart, is understanding that, like, you could literally do nothing and be promoted. Lucky. So that's the kind of stuff that I think is just important for you to understand, is that there are very complex dynamics, very deep energies that you're working with in your chart. They are also all very different. They can play nice, but they each need a space in your life, almost like you're needing to make specific altars for those sides of you, for those masks. Like, you can't just be one person and be like, hey, I'm this forever and ever and ever. Like, no, there are other pieces of you that need to come forward. And I think having Gemini on the 7th house with Mercury in the 11th ruling it, like, you're going to choose a partner who embraces all of those sides of you, who knows that, like, oh, I'm dealing with the Scorpio side this time around, or oh yeah, there's that Virgo moon, or oh yeah, Sag ascendant's coming out to play, woohoo, party time. You know, they're having a partner who understands that is naturally going to be somebody who you gravitate into your life. So it's not that you won't be understood by others, it's that you won't be understood by yourself, and that's kind of the caveat that I would add to your chart, my dearest Erin. Okay. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again, Renee. I'm so glad that you submitted your charts. Thank you, everybody who submitted your charts to the live stream. I'm so happy to be on and doing this again. It's always fun. It's always a great time. I love spending my mornings with you. I do this for a living, so if you got stuff out of today's live stream, you can support me in a couple different ways. You can go to ScorpioRisingAstrology.com, which is my website. Check out my rates for consultations, which I provide on a one-to-one basis. And check out the online classes that I've recorded. If you're interested in learning astrology, they're affordable. My intro to astrology course bundle is $85 for videos, multiple hours worth of content, like 6 hours worth of content for $85. Not bad. And then I also have my medical astrology series that I'm teaching tonight, Tuesday and Wednesday from 6 to 8. So Monday through Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to register for that, I still have spots open. You will get the recordings of those classes. You'll also get a discount. It's $50 for all three nights. Really great price. But once I download those and put them on the website for resale for other people to buy, I will be jacking up the price on those. So yeah, lots of fun stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm always here for you if you have astrology questions. I have my daily posts as well, my daily horoscopes on my page on Instagram too. That's what I forgot to do. I forgot to go live on Instagram. But yeah, until next time, we will do this again as soon as I have the energy to do it and the time to do it. But we will definitely do this again, and may the stars be ever in your favor in the meantime.